Appreciate everybody being here. We're in Lismore to give the latest update in relation to ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. It's very important that people listen to emergency warnings from the SES. Before we get into the general briefing, I wanted to speak about the ADF personnel that were involved in a motor vehicle accident yesterday afternoon. There are 12 soldiers still in hospital, Lismore Hospital. 2 are in a serious condition. There was a massive police, paramedic, New South Wales Fire and Rescue, as well as SES response to that accident, and many people were involved in ensuring that those young diggers were looked after in incredibly trying circumstances. I think I speak on behalf of everybody in New South Wales when we wish a speedy recovery for all of those young soldiers. We genuinely appreciate their presence here in this aftermath of the cyclone, and I just want to say in a broader point, when it comes to the involvement of the ADF in civil matters, particularly natural disasters, we are full of praise for the dedication and selflessness of ADF personnel. We appreciate them being involved, particularly in relation to Alfred, and I want to see, if it's at all possible, more of it in the future. And we really genuinely congratulate and are full of gratitude to the Commonwealth Government for deploying early the ADF personnel. Notwithstanding the accident last night, this is incredibly important when it comes to community confidence, the skills and expertise of the ADF, and I'd hate to see it dampen federal government's involvement in these natural disasters. The bottom line is we need you. They do an incredible job and we're very grateful for it. Can I speak about particularly the situation in the Northern Rivers? There's some encouraging news in relation to the Wilson as it relates to the Wilson River. The latest information from the BOM is that we can expect moderate flooding, although we are watching the situation incredibly closely. And I'm happy to report that the evacuation warning that went out yesterday or the day before has been lifted for Lismore CBD. So the advice now is to return with caution for Lismore CBD. In relation to the other notices that were issued via the Hazards Near Me app and the SES, they stay in place. And to give you an idea of the volatility of the situation as it currently stands, the SES has issued prepare to evacuation notices for low-lying communities near the Clarence River because we're experiencing in that Northern River's western section a heightened level of rainfall. So this is a fluid situation. The rain is falling unevenly across the catchments, and as a result there'll be different advices for different valleys and different communities. That's why it's important to download the Hazards Near Me app, get the information as quickly as possible, act on it as soon as possible. Can I also speak about electricity? I think it's important to note that Essential Energy has done an incredible job restoring community to power as soon as possible. Earlier yesterday we had 45,000 houses or thereabouts who had their power knocked out as a result of Alfred. As it currently stands, Essential has been able to return all but about 14,000 households in the Northern Rivers, primarily in the Tweed area. They're doing everything they can to expedite returning those communities to power, but the pre-positioning of literally, we think about 500 to 600 sparkies, linesmen, electrical engineers in the Northern Rivers has meant that we've been able to turn on those communities sooner than we otherwise would have been able to. So a big round of applause and a lot of gratitude to Essential Energy for getting communities back on power as soon as possible. It's a crucial part of ensuring that we can get communities back on their feet after dealing with this massive natural emergency. I want to make it clear that we're not out of the woods yet. We're watching very closely the river systems in the Northern Rivers. There's still a lot of rain out there. There's still a lot of full rivers, swollen rivers, although there are obviously some encouraging signs, and the latest information out of the Wilson is obviously encouraging. It's also important to note that the hazardous weather watch in many coastal communities has been lifted as a result of the cyclone moving through, although we were in the Tweed yesterday afternoon with the Mayor, Chris, as well as the State MP, Jeff Provost, and the Federal MP, Justine Elliott, and the damage to that community is pretty extensive. They've been hit very hard for multiple days of incredibly high winds. Resilient community, they're tough, they'll get on their feet, but we don't want them forgotten in terms of the clean-up or the flood response. Finally, I just want to say it's been a great community response right across New South Wales. Not compliance, but genuine community spirit, a sense of help and a sense of obligation to neighbours and complete strangers. We've relied on about 3,200 SES volunteers and personnel in the region. We've relied on New South Wales Police, Fire Rescue New South Wales, the paramedics who've deployed in massive numbers. Again, I don't want to imply that we're out of the woods yet, but this has been a gigantic community response right across this state. There are many, many people, literally thousands, that have left their family and their friends to go and help the people of the Northern Rivers. So if you see them in the street, thank them on behalf of New South Wales. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I'm going to pass over to Stuart.
Good morning, everyone. As the Premier indicated, this morning we reduced the warning in Lismore from an emergency warning to evacuate to advise, return with caution. So that's the start of the process for us going forward now. And as some rivers start to recede, we will adjust those warnings appropriately. Overnight, the Clarence, we had heavy rain in the Clarence, and we did issue a number to prepare to evacuate along some of those, including Maclean, Kempsey and Elmara. Again, we'll watch them, and as appropriate, we'll reduce that. But at the moment, it's prepared to evacuate, and we'll watch. The rainfall totals over the last 6 hours, 50 to 100 mils. So it is starting to decrease. However, we have had falls of in excess of 200 millimetres overnight. Meldrum at the moment hits the total of 926 mil. So that's again substantial, followed by Dorrigo at 850. Flood rescues overnight, 6. And unfortunately, one of those where a family of 2 adults and 6 kids tried to navigate through flooded waters. SES crews were able to get there and they are safe, but again it highlights the same issue we talk about time and time again. Do not drive through flooded waters. It absolutely astounds me that this still occurs. But in the end, a good result. As I said, going forward, we are now reviewing all our warnings, and as the rain subsides and the river system starts to go down, we will start to bring those advice or those warnings back to advice, and we'll do that in conjunction with the recovery coordinator, and then we'll obviously transition to recovery.
Thanks, Stu.
Thanks, Stu. Good afternoon, everybody. And like the Premier, obviously our thoughts are very much with the ADF personnel who are out there trying to help our communities. Just to sum up a few things and to recap, a really important point that we're at the moment, which is the SES revising different warning system. And of course, we've got a situation now where the Lismore CBD has changed to a return with caution. Assessments are still taking place with the SES, and what we'll see during the day and over the coming days is when it's safe to return, people will be asked to return. But we do ask again, please maintain your caution. Please make sure that you're being sensible. Please make sure that you're looking after yourself, not putting yourself or your family or anybody else in harm's way. I will once again reiterate that message about driving through flooded waters. As people are coming back into areas, they may come across roads that have got some water over them. Please, under no circumstances, drive through those roads. Stuart just talked about some of the rescues that we undertook yesterday, including a large family. Thankfully, that had a positive outcome. There's been 49 flood rescues in the past few days. We want to see no more of that. So please make sure that you do the right thing in that sense. We're also keeping up the communication as much as possible, and I'm appreciative of people who are adhering to all of those messages. The one thing too that we need to remember is that this is still an ongoing situation. So whilst we're looking already at people returning with caution here in Lismore CBD, there are other parts up and down the coast that are still under evacuation warnings and others that are under prepared to evacuate. And of course, we know that this weather system is starting to move a little bit west. So we are very much still in that response phase. Having said all of that, and I know that Mal Lanyon will speak to it a bit further, we're also looking well and truly into the recovery phase. We know that people want to get back to their lives as quickly as possible, and what we want to make sure that we can do that in a very safe environment, but we're working with those communities. I appreciate the work of Scott Tanner and all of the teams. There's been a lot said about our emergency services. It's only for me to say thank you to everybody, including my agencies and other agencies that have come on board. But we are certainly not out of the woods. Where we are at the moment, though, is a lot better than where we were a few days ago. And we got there by doing it together. We got there by working together. We got there by supporting one another, and we got there by following all of the instructions. It's a really important point to make, and I just want to conclude by saying, please maintain your caution. Don't drive through flooded waters. Look out for one another, and I certainly echo the call from the Premier. If you see one of our emergency services personnel, give them a pat on the back and a small thanks. They don't do it for the thanks, but it's really appreciated, particularly if they've come a long way from home. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Premier. Thanks, Minister. The Reconstruction Authority is very firmly focused on moving the community into recovery. I'm speaking regularly with the Commissioner of the SES to make sure that we can transition areas from response into recovery. I'm very much of the view that we will do that in a staggered approach. As some areas are still in response, we'll be looking to recover other parts of the community. The website I mentioned yesterday, www.nsw.gov.au/Tropical Cyclone Alfred Recovery, Cyclone Alfred Recovery, is now up and running. Can I encourage all members of the community to access that site? They'll find information about recovery activities and what's available. From tomorrow, we'll be conducting mobile engagement with the SES with a view to understanding what support's required by community and providing that straight away. From Thursday this week, we'll open 4 recovery assistance points. Those recovery assistance points provide valuable information and services to the community. They are basically a one-stop shop where the community can access information and support. The initial 4 locations will be at Lismore, Southern Cross University, Military Road, East Lismore. It'll be in room V1.19. At Ballina Surf Club, 65 Lighthouse Parade, East Ballina. Tweed Heads will be at Tweed South Community Hall, corner of Heffron Street and Minjungbul Drive, South Tweed Heads. And at Coffs Harbour, Coffs Ex-Services Club, 2 to 6 Vernon Street at Coffs Harbour. The number of recovery assistance points and the way that we operate those will be very much judged by the needs of the community, and we will work through that process as we move from response to recovery. We have a meeting this afternoon with councils, again, to work with the EPA, Transport and Public Works, to ensure that we can establish immediate works on roads so that access is restored. But we have been right through the area and we've seen numerous amounts of debris, broken trees and green waste, and we really want to prioritise those works with councils. A package of support has been announced by the State Government and Commonwealth Government to support councils, and we'll be working through the process this afternoon to make sure that can happen quickly. Again, we will provide further information, but if I could just draw the attention to that website. If you need support, please go there and we'll be there to support you. The Reconstruction Authority will be here for the long haul to make sure we recover our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you all. Just in regards to the ADF accident yesterday. So shortly after 5 p.m. yesterday, 2 ADF vehicles were travelling along Tregeagle Road at Tregeagle. They had been tasked to attend and assist the SES with some tree removals. At a point on the roadway, both of those vehicles overturned. The cause of the accident is still under investigation. But what I can say, there was 32 military personnel on board. All 32 were conveyed to hospital. As the Premier said, we still have 2 that are in a serious condition. In my 32 years of policing, it's the largest accident scene that I've been to. The response from the emergency services was outstanding, but also the response from the ADF personnel. I was the 3rd car on scene. By the time I got there, they had triaged all of their patients except the ones that had been trapped in the vehicle. They were providing first aid to each other, and some were actually providing first aid to themselves. So I really want to thank the ADF because they've come up here to help the community and unfortunately been involved in this very tragic accident. But our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to their family, and we're very appreciative of the efforts they put in. Thank you.
And I think we're all happy to take questions.
Can I just have you first stop just on the ADF vehicle crash? Do you know if all of these members were wearing seatbelts or not, and is speed an issue?
So the cause of the accident is still under investigation, but I can say that all of them were wearing seatbelts, and there is a 4-point harness in the rear of those large trucks, and certainly the injuries were lessened because all of them were wearing those seatbelts.
Can you describe what the scene was like? Obviously, these are very heavy-duty vehicles. What sort of damage was there, or what sort of situations were people in?
So one vehicle had left the roadway and had overturned in a paddock. It had rollen a number of times, and one was blocking the entire road. Tregeagle Road is a very small country road, so it's not very wide. All I can say that it was a very hectic scene when we arrived. We had patients of varying injuries up and down the roadway, and certainly we still had 4 persons trapped. But the response, as I said, within 2 hours of arriving on scene, we had every person off that location into a hospital. When you think about that, having 32 people conveyed to hospital in such a short space of time is a credit to all the emergency services.
We initially heard there were 6 seriously injured. Has that number now gone down to 2? The employment front.
That's correct. Only 2 remain serious.
And are they all, everyone's still in hospital at Lismore?
So they were taken to both Tweed Heads, Byron Bay, Ballina and Lismore. Only Lismore has patients left in it.
Was that because of the capacity issue? Obviously, there were so many patients, they couldn't all just go to one hospital.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So we had to declare a mass emergency. So through our health partners, they enacted that. There was doctors that were recalled that came into the hospital, and specialist trauma surgeons also attended.
So has anybody had to undergo surgery? What are the worst of the injuries?
Spinal injuries are the worst. So no surgery as yet.
No surgery?
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask Mayor Seacree just for a minute?
Nailed it.
You're standing there doing
Nailed it.
You've run out of clothes.
Anything but his
I'm
outfit.
broke, no clothes. End of
Can I
statement.
just ask how you feel? I mean, you're a business owner in the CBD and it hasn't overtopped the levy. Just what that means for you and the business community, going forward, how relieved you'd be.
It's a massive relief, Simon, but again, the work begins now. A lot of our businesses are in a precarious financial position before this, and so people will be keen to hear the evacuation orders being lifted as a massive relief. Some of these, I was talking to one of the business owners, packing up is quick, setting up again is a 3-day process, so they're hoping to be back up and trading on Wednesday. So that's over a week without an income, and with all the staff that are employed that need to be paid, that's still a massive stress and a strain on our small business community, there's no doubt about that. I was talking, and I will just mention the waste and the clean-up is very important with the help of the state government and the EPA. One of our big abattoirs has got 20 tonnes of carcasses to be disposed of because of power loss. All of those sorts of compounding issues with the green waste, but we'll be working hard to make sure that our Lismore community can get access to our waste facility over the coming weeks. Maybe you'll chip in and help us with that, Janelle, and give it to us for free is our goal. But yeah, there's a massive clean-up ahead of us just due to the power outages.
While you're there, can I get your reaction to the ADF crash on behalf of the community?
Very saddened by it, to be honest with you. We got to know the ADF very well in 2022 and they got through a power of work. They were amazing after the 2022 disaster. So that any time you see these vehicles in your city, it fills you with confidence and hope. And to hear of what happened yesterday, as Scott said, our hearts are with those members of the ADF and especially with their families as well.
What can you tell us about that particular intersection, that area of road?
Well, it just pushes the case to upgrade that Tregeagle Road, which we've been asking for years and years and years, and I'm not going to press the state. At the moment, they've done an amazing job, the state government, with their emergency services crews, no doubt about that, but we all know there's a lot of work to do. We've only just started to roll out the funding to fix the road network after the 2022 disaster. So, there's always lessons learned, no doubt about that. This is another thing that we can take away and hopefully get some of these essential works done a lot sooner than 3 years after a disaster.
Can you confirm
Thank God.
more ADF vehicles on the way? What can you tell us about plans to boost ADF numbers in the area?
So we're working with the Commonwealth. They've been very generous in relation to the deployment of ADF personnel. As I said at the very beginning, we need them. And they're a fantastic addition to the emergency service workers that we've already got on the ground. But when you've got natural disasters, and if you live in Australia, unfortunately, you have to live with natural disasters. We can expect more of them, not less of them. Using the ADF during civil emergencies is crucially important, and we really genuinely thank the Commonwealth Government for it. And I don't want I mean, it's a terrible accident yesterday. There's some young soldiers that have been seriously injured, but I guess I don't want it to dampen the community's need, the state's need, the public's need for help every now and then when, frankly, we could be overwhelmed. One of the big lessons out of the 2025 tropical cyclone compared to 2022 is pre-deployment, early warning, the most available, accurate information to the public, and then pre-deployment. And I think if you run into any random member of the public, they'd say the same thing. Janelle, would you say that? Do you want to jump in?
Yeah. I'll reiterate what I've said repeatedly, that the preparation has been outstanding. I haven't seen it before, and people are commenting about it. I get it, to me, people here this morning everywhere I go, and they've never seen anything like it, which is fantastic. And that's a credit to, the Premier, the government, but the agencies themselves just being, and most of them are volunteers. I mean, yes, there's people on the payroll, but they're doing 24/7, but all volunteers, and it's just fantastic. I mean, makes me feel really proud, though. My community's volunteers, so, everybody's there doing it together, and I feel incredibly proud of all our helping agencies, and all the combat agencies.
Stuart, can we just ask you, have you guys done an assessment yet on how many homes, businesses may have been impacted by floodwater across the northern rivers?
Look, we're going to be working with the recovery coordinator on that. We're going to have rapid damage assessment teams up shortly, if not already here. And we'll assess when it's safe to go in. We'll go do the assessment, and then we'll report that back to the recovery authorities.
So what might recovery look like for the northern rivers?
I will refer back to the recovery coordinator.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously very much on the needs of the community based on the impacts. So part of what Stuart was just saying, we need to do thorough impact assessments to understand what has been damaged, what assistance is required. I mentioned earlier on, one of the things we have noticed very early is simply the amount of green waste and debris that is around the area. We'll work very closely now to see in terms of infrastructure, in terms of housing, what assistance is required. I've mentioned previously, our real focus at the moment is making sure that clean-up occurs quickly, is that access to roads and immediate road repairs occur very quickly. Where there's a need for resupply, that is people that are currently isolated, we want to make sure that we provide that support quickly. So a lot of work, but again, very much working with the community. Recovery assistance points are really about giving a place for the community to access information and services.
Can I just welcome the Mayor of Richmond Valley, Robert Mustow. He's joined us, so welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for being here.
Quickly, so I'm just getting texts from residents, obviously excited by the prospect of going back to the CBD. They're all asking when they can go back home, South Lismore, North Lismore, East Lismore. I know it's hard to predict, but have you got an idea at this stage?
Look, we've got crews out there assessing it right now. Our concern is that the forecast for today is heavy rain, and we're just working with the Bureau of Meteorology. It's one of those things we know we will need to get people back as soon as we can, and if it's safe to do so, we will do that as soon as we possibly can. If the rain holds off, and we hope it does, we'll send some of those orders quickly to get them back. We know the angst is there, and we'll do that as soon as we can.
Just on the Clarence Valley, can you just give us a bit more of a detailed snapshot of what's happening there and what the plans are?
Look, they had over 100 mil of rain last night. What it does mean is the rivers are rising reasonably quickly, and as we've seen down here, we'll issue those orders sooner than later as a precaution to give people plenty of time to get out during the daylight hours. One of the criticisms from the last event was that we issued them at night, so we issue them during the day where possible, and that's what we've done today.
Is it fair to say it's an easing trend in terms of the weather impacts, or is it too early to say that?
No, it is easing. Other concern we have is the thunderstorms that come through late in the afternoon, and those thunderstorms could drop another 50 to 100, maybe even more mils of rain, which then exacerbates the situation those rivers rise. That's why we are cautious when we allow them to come back in, and when we talk about South and North Lismore, the thunderstorms are due to come back in this afternoon. If we get that 100 mil of rain, it'll bring that back up again. So we don't want to get everybody in and then have to get them back out again. So that's the reason for being a little bit cautious.
Update from Mark on the power outages and how long, I guess, numbers, and also how long until people might get back up and running.
Yeah, for sure. So the outages at the moment in the essential energy footprint, so from Twittheads to the Queensland border, we have outages down to as far south as Kempsey. a lot smaller, obviously, the further south that you go. At the moment, in the Tweed Heads area, we have about 4,800 customers still without supply there. And then into the Morelumbah area, there's about 4,000 customers there without supply. Into the Byron Bay, Ewingsdale, Mullumbimby area, there's about 3,500 customers in there without supply. And then there's a long and distinguished list of areas beyond that. The total numbers at the moment are just under 15,000 customers in the essential energy footprint without supply. So we will continue to, Crews had a good day yesterday, particularly yesterday afternoon and into last night, to restore over 16,000 customers across the footprint. So some really good achievements there. We will continue today, weather prevailing into this evening. We're obviously mindful of those thunderstorms coming in as well, and our crews will continue to attempt to reduce those outstanding customers and restore supply to as many as we can this evening. Obviously, at the moment, in some of those bigger areas, we are working through, from a mainline feeder perspective, to clear the feeder, make sure it's safe for re-energising, make sure we're not going to put any of the public at risk by re-energising electricity infrastructure in those areas, and then we will then re-energise those areas, hopefully restoring supply to some of those larger number areas. Particularly in the Tweed Heads area, there is about 1,500 customers on one outage in the Bilambil Heights area, so that is a focus for us today to restore supply there.
Okay. Worst case scenario, how many days will people be waiting to get that back?
I would expect that some customers, particularly in those rural and outlying areas, will be looking at 5 to 10 days before supply is restored, and there is quite substantial damage to some of the vegetation in those areas, and also lots and lots of damage to actual electricity infrastructure in those areas. So we will need to clear vegetation prior to accessing those locations.
I'm not trying to cut off questions, but you'd appreciate that these guys need to get back to work. So can we get a couple of last ones?
Recovery support.
Yes.
We've got individuals with grants to low-income earners and help to remove their property.
Yep.
And in the business support, there's concessional interest rate loans and grants from non-profit organisations.
Yep.
The businesses itself, there's only the concessional interest rate loans. Did
Right.
you consider putting some grant loans in? And I ask specifically, obviously, for Lismore,
Yep.
the business of their banks.
I can just.
So did
Do you mind me?
and is it an option?
Do you mind me? I'll answer it because it's a very good question. You're absolutely right. Janelle and Steve will hug you first and then put you in a headlock and say, "We need help." It's not just to me. We are. Yeah, they do hug you first. We're actively looking at it. We're talking with the Commonwealth Government. We've also been speaking with the Queensland Government. We want to make sure that we act. We think we'll have more to say as early as tomorrow in relation to the next stages of community support, grant support. We need to make sure that it works, and but I can't announce it today, but it's not far off.
And then they say here that, sorry for SE, this might be not for Scott, room V119 is on the side, but what does that mean?
That's the location.
Yeah, exactly. Just specifics for me, because that's all the others have addressed, but yes, EU, as you know, is very large.
Yeah.
What is it?
Simon, if you go to that website that I mentioned before, we'll have a map on there which will show people how to get there. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. It is a big site, and I want to make sure people can find it. So that is the room number, but we'll have a map that actually enables people to get quickly to